Hey guys, welcome to TFT Basics with Light again. I'm your host, LightKerosene. What we're doing today is teaching you how to make a team comp. And the best way to do that is to pre-plan your team comp. What I like to use is mobilytics.gg. They have a team comp builder. You can access that by going to mobilytics.gg. Then heading over here, here. So first you go to Mobilytics, you'll end up on this page. You go to TFT, Team Builder. All right, so once you're here, this is a great tool where you can pre-plan out your composition. So in the first video, we mentioned that your tanks go up front. So typically what you're looking for are early game synergies with low cost units. So in one of the videos I mentioned Poppy is a great early game unit. So here we have Poppy. She's a Vanguard and a Star Guardian. Now she gets supplemented well with Leona, which allows for the Vanguard buff. Then you might go a Ranger, so Caitlyn, and possibly a Ashe for Celestial, right? So that gives us 3 1 costs and a 3 cost. Now, from here, we know that we need a Chrono and a Celestial. So one of the better ways to do that is to go for a Kassadin for a Celestial. That'll give all of our units a 15% chance to heal for damage dealt, which is great. So now we have our Sniper bonus that deals 15% more damage the further they are. So we have our snipers in the back. We have our Kassadin, who's an off tank, so that's why he's more off to the right. Whereas our two main tanks are in the front. Now, one thing that I like to do is grab Mordekaiser. So let's take Mordekaiser and Jace. Let's take Jace, and that'll give us 4 Vanguards, which increases our tanks all the way up to 250 armor. So that's a lot of damage mitigation in terms of physical damage. Now, we still need this Chrono buff, and as you see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units. So at turn 7, we have a chance of hitting our endgame units. So you can either put in Wukong for Leona, which will give you a Chrono. You can, and that would be the ideal change once you start to hit 7, 8, because you're going to hit a 4-star and you're going to want the extra damage and the Chrono buff, which is going to give everybody attack speed. But maybe the 15% isn't quite good enough. Let's go for 4 Chrono. So we're going to throw in Thresh, which is going to give us 3 Chronos, which means we only need 1 more. But he's also going to give us Mana Reaver, and he'll also pull units from our bench. This is pretty great. So now let's think about what else can we hit. We can get a Space Pirate, a Dark Star, a Star Guardian, or a Chrono, right? So we're going to look for either Ezreal, which is going to give us another kind of midline unit, pretty good carry, right? Or we can ditch Ezreal and Thresh and go for 4 Celestial, which would be Xin Zhao and Rakan. So we would put our Rakan, okay, so this would be how our build kind of goes. What this allows us to do is we have our 2 knockups next to our Mordekaiser, who's going to be our carry. We have 4 Celestials, so now instead of 50% or 15% healing, we have 30%, which is pretty massive healing. Think like a Bloodthirster on everybody, but abilities as well. Or like a better Hex Tech Gunblade. Then we get the 2 Protector from our Xin Zhao and our Rakan. So when they jump in or when they knock people up, they are going to get a shield. Then we've got our 2 chrono to make everybody attack faster as the fight progresses, our 2 snipers, and of course our 4 vanguards. Now for items, we are looking at the primary item for this build would be a bramble vest. We'll discuss this in the next video where we discuss Mordekaiser because he's the #1 unit on our list. I'm going to make videos for each champion and kind of their strengths, weaknesses, and best item builds. So we know that his main item is a bramble vest, and then we're going to cap that off with a dragon claw and a Morellonomicon. Okay. So the second carry is going to be, okay, so when you're creating your tank, you want 2 defensive items, 1 armor based item, 1 magic resist based item, and 1 offensive item. So since Mordekaiser does damage over time, the extra health, ability power, and damage from the Morellonomicon allows him to be able to deal damage while being a threat. The Dragon Claw makes him super resistant towards magic damage, and the Bramble Vest makes it so that he can't be crit. This leads to us having a very good tank that can lead towards the longer fights, right? We know that we have the chrono, so we can go for a Sojin on our Ashe, which is her main item. We can go for a Ginsu, and if you'd like, you can go for a Hurricane. That is an Ashe build. Basically, what we're doing is we're letting Ashe deal 15%, it's 18% of her max mana every attack. And that'll allow her to ultimate over and over and over, which leads to large crowd control stuns. Then we have a Rage Blade that gives 4% attack speed on every attack, which stacks infinitely. And we wrap that off with attacking 1 extra target, dealing 70% damage. Now, the key isn't necessarily the attacking an extra target, but because it applies on hits, it gives us an extra 18% to our Spear Sojin, and it gives us an extra 4% attack speed. So now we're getting 8% attack speed per hit, which is pretty strong. So our primary carries in this build are going to be getting a tier 3 Mordekaiser, a tier 2 Ashe, a tier 2 Caitlyn, a tier 2, tier 2, a tier 2, a tier 3, and a tier 3. You can tier 3 Poppy, but she's more of a tier 2, and tier 2 Cassidy. So in the end game, this is kind of what your build will look like. Now, if you are hitting these 2 items, but you're not getting the Rage Blade, and let's say you have a magic resist and an AP, you don't have to run the Ashe here. You can run Ionic Spark, which will help our Mordekaiser deal more damage, a Spear of Sojin, which is also Rakan's main item. Either one of these are Rakan's main item. And then, of course, a Hurricane for the same reason as Ashe. We're trying to get these Spear of Sojins going up really quickly. You could also build a second Spear of Sojin, right? So if you're getting more defensive items, it might be easier to make the carry Rakan build. You can even go without the Hurricane, and you could go for a what's called perfect Rakan build. But because we have a Morello on our Mordekaiser, we don't need a Morello here, which allows us to be able to put the Hurricane on Rakan. So your carry items are going to be these 3 carries. And we have a mainly frontline focused team comp. So when thinking about it, just think about what origins work well together and why, right? So this build is, we're getting really tanky with 250 armor. We're healing for 30% of the damage. We're giving our tanks and everybody 15% attack speed for the prolonged fights. Our snipers are getting extra damage, and our protectors are getting an extra max heal or max shield. So that concludes how to make a team comp. I encourage anybody to come in here and just kind of play with team comps. And my biggest advice is just think of units that are consistently early game 1 to 3 cost units, and how to make a 6-man comp that you can flex your last 3 units. All right, well, this has been LightKerosene. I hope this was educational for you guys, and I will see you on the next video. Late.